Welcome back, everyone, to the Frosty Canucks podcast. I'm your host, Jason, along with Frosty.
You will be ashamed of your words and deeds.
Why is that?
Because she breathes through her skin.
Are you talking about my wife?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Anyway, video games.
What about video games this week?
Oh, I guess I'm starting off then. I'm going to just come out here and say this, just get this out of the way immediately. We don't have a lot of news-related topics to discuss this week.
Yeah, there's not been a whole lot of interesting stuff that's happened as of late.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess one takeaway would be that Sony reverted part of their closure changes, so they're no longer going to close the Vita and the PS3 store, but they're still going to go ahead with the PSP, which, I mean,
all right.
Fair enough. That's been dead in the water for a while.
Yeah. Just in general, a lot of the news has been stuff that, I don't particularly care about, and Jason didn't particularly care about, so because neither of us care about it, we're not covering it. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess E3 is the thing this year.
Yeah.
Woo.
They're doing a digital event. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they have 3 internet personalities hosting the event. They've got Greg Miller from Kinda Funny.
That's a staple almost.
Yeah, if there's like an event happening that requires somebody like that, Greg is usually like a shoo-in for it. So
pretty much.
He's gotten like typecast as like he's going to be our announcer, funny guy or whatever. And then they have, I don't remember his name, but I know his screen name, Golden Boy. He's a esports caster. He was actually one of the ones nominated for one of the Game Awards last year. And then there was some other person who I don't recognize. It was a lady.
Was that one of the awards that we skipped over?
I believe so, yeah. Because
okay.
Yeah, I only know the name because of the tiebreakers that we had in my Discord.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I guess they're doing like more of a organized kind of thing. I assume it's going to look probably kind of like the PC gaming press conference where they have hosts and then the hosts are going to be like introducing the next topic and then it'll play whatever the next segment of the live stream is. It's organized and centralized and can be delivered out in a format that actually makes sense instead of it being like a fucking disaster.
I still think it's probably going to be a disaster.
I don't have my hopes high, but I don't like E3 very much to begin with, so...
The bar's already set so low.
Yeah, well, it's a giant advertisement, right? I have a hard time getting excited about a giant advertisement. Anyway, with the coming weeks, there's going to be like a lot of probably E3 related news. So we may or may not cover that until after E3 kind of happens. At which point, I don't know, we could do like a thing talking about what games were shown off that we liked or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's a couple weeks from now. Couple episodes.
Yeah, a couple episodes. Could probably do like the best of the best and worst of the worst.
Oh man, I don't want to do worst of the worst. That means I have to watch everything.
Okay, fine.
The only time I've actually enjoyed doing E3 is when I'm on like a Discord call with a bunch of people and we're just watching the conference together, taking the piss the entire time.
I mean, that's the best way.
Yeah, it really is. Because then you can just make fun of everything that's happening. Frequent listener and question asker, Maz. I loved when we did the Xbox conference like 2 or 3 years ago. Maz was on the call, and as soon as Phil Spencer walks out, he's like, "Yo, it's my boy, Fat Phil." He calls him that because Phil Spencer is extremely overweight.
Yeah, it kind of is, isn't he?
He's a very, very husky gentleman.
Daddy Xbox.
Oh, he's even gained like a lot of weight over his tenure as like the figurehead of Xbox. The last time that we saw him in any capacity and during like a live event, Maz even commented about how give it a few more years and like Microsoft will be like the PC Master Race because Phil will be as fat as Gabe Newell.
Is that why the Xbox looks like a fridge?
Maybe. I don't know.
Sorry, just kind of an observation.
Anyway, none of this has anything to do with anything. So the first and kind of like only topic we actually have lined up, there was a PlayStation live stream. I think it was the live stream that happened this past week where Sony went over some of their financial related information. The key takeaway for me was a graph that Matt snipped from the live stream because he actually watched it while it was happening. It happened while I was asleep. And so there's this pie chart, this wonderful pie chart. On it, we see a breakdown of Sony's game and network service earnings over the past financial year. Mm-hmm. And then, so it's got the money in billions. which all of these figures are in the billions, and the percentage of the whole pie chart that they make up. The thing that I thought was the funny, and I know I already pointed this out to you, Jason. You had a comment on it, but the thing that I thought was the funniest was that the packaged games, physical game sales, represents the absolute smallest portion of this graph, being beaten out by peripherals and accessories. The difference between them is only like 20 million, but it's still very funny to me that the physical game sales was the lowest earning portion for Sony last year.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. Not as many people want to be buying stuff when there might be coronavirus on the package.
Yeah, or just the fact that with all of the events that happened last year, the convenience of digital super duper outweighed getting physical games. I know that you mentioned before that you thought that the peripheral category only beat out the physical games because of stuff like PSVR, because the price disparity between like a PSVR unit versus a physical game, right?
Yeah, I mean, the PSVR would be about roughly 4 to 5 games worth, so, and general consumers kind of just don't buy a ton of games. Like, when someone buys, like, the FIFA games, it's just like, oh, that's my game, and then I'll buy, like, a couple more, and that's kind of it for the whole entire year.
Yeah.
Because those are their games. I can kind of see why if a few people buy the VR, it slowly starts to outweigh
the physical game sales.
Yeah, the average person who buys games, like the number that they buy games.
Yeah, I'm very interested to know, because like obviously the PSVR is one of those things, because it's even listed as an example, but I'm very curious to know what other accessories are there, because I didn't know that Sony actually sold like PlayStation brand shit.
So there's the camera, but I mean that's also part of the VR, so of like the VR bundle. I think like they sell PlayStation branded like big headphones.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Interesting.
The PS5 has the one that's being kind of advertised with it. That's like, oh, supports 3D audio.
Yeah,
okay.
I saw that,
so
and it looked like
pretty much everything else.
It looked like a big fucking scam, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell people how to spend their money. Not for this, anyway. So just so people can kind of visualize the graph, because I got it in front of me, so you don't at home, obviously. Boxed games, retail games, made up 5% of the graph. Peripherals made up 6% of the graph. So you can already tell that this graph is not really skewed towards physical goods. The biggest amount of physical sales or volumes of sales came from console hardware. So 20% of their earnings was made off of selling PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 units.
Yeah, that makes sense with the PS5 selling like like hotcakes.
They don't have it broken down on here how much is what, but I got to assume that more of that is probably the PS4 just by virtue of it being available for longer.
Available for longer, actually available.
Yeah.
Sony's been doing weird shit on their PlayStation YouTube channel where they keep advertising the features of the PS5, and oh man, the comments are just glorious on that video. It's just like,
this is where I would put my PS5 if I had one. That kind of stuff.
If I had one, it's usually like a pun on like breathtaking games. Oh yeah, it takes my breath away because I can't still get it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then, so 21% of their total net revenue, which is almost the largest, so just about as much as the console hardware, came from digital sales. I don't think that's surprising, given the circumstances and the way the market has been trending. I know there's a lot of people who still, and I kind of made fun of them with the PlayStation shop shutting down, right? But like the way things have been going, the fact digital sales are severely outweighing the physical sales is not at all surprising to me, especially with what happened last year. But yeah, if you look at this, it's almost like a 4-to-1 ratio. For every 4 digital games, there was 1 physical game sold. You know, as far as the way that the money breaks down, obviously a lot more digital games have varying price ranges where retail games are always like the set $80, where with digital, you know, you get like the full gamut. You get things that are like $15, $20, $30, $40, $60, $80, whatever. So now some people are going to be like, but microtransactions. So that's its own column because that is how much bigger it is. So the biggest column on here, to no one's, or at least it should be to no one's surprise, is for add-on content. So that is 34% of the graph, which is the sole biggest earner for Sony was from add-on content, microtransactions, and DLC. That's that Fortnite money.
Of course, Fortnite money.
So yeah, between the digital sales of add-on content and digital game sales, that's over 50% of Sony's entire revenue stream from last year, which is pretty crazy.
And then if you add on the network
services, if you add in the network services, I didn't even think of that. So the last 14%.
It's 2/3.
Yeah.
It's about 2/3.
The last 14% is network services, so PS Now, PS Plus, 14, 34, and 21 together, and you have almost 2/3 of the graph was off of digital only. It's actually pretty crazy that, like, just how much of their revenue is made off of non-tangible goods, right?
I mean, this graph clearly shows that having a discless PS5 makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure Sony kind of wants to just cannibalize the full packaged retail one.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And just take that over.
Because that's more money for them, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be like closer to like 70%, or almost like 3/4 of their revenue will just be digital.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Obviously, Sony wants that to happen because they get way more of the money that way.
It cuts out the middleman. Amazon, everyone else involved.
I still think it's crazy. I keep seeing things online where people are like they try and fudge the data or like represent it such that it looks like physical sales aren't getting completely demolished by digital sales. But then you have this graph that comes from Sony directly, and it's very clear why they made like you said, it's very clear why they made a diskless system. It makes sense when like 2/3 of your revenue comes from like could be supported by a diskless system.
Yeah, and they passed those savings onto the consumer to get them more interested.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. It does cost less, doesn't it?
$100 less.
Holy shit! For a fucking lack of a Blu-ray drive? Are you shitting me?
Yeah.
The Blu-ray drive on my computer was the cheapest part. It cost like $15.
I mean, the problem being is that Sony's PlayStation Store kind of takes the piss when it comes to like lowering the prices over time. Like a lot of games still are at their like $80 value, whereas the physical ones, they drop in price really, really quickly. So I think Persona 5 Strikers, I saw it on Amazon, and it's $50 or $55 now. And then on the PlayStation Store, it's like, we've discounted by 20%, so it's like $62 or something like that. And I'm like,
I guess I could understand that. With the physical games, there's a bigger onus on actually trying to get rid of them. Because they're taking up space, where digital games is like, well, it doesn't matter. It can just exist here forever, and no one will care. It's not really taking up any space, really. I feel like PC has that a little bit better as far as sales go.
As someone who's kind of switched a little bit over to Steam, yeah, the sales are much better over there.
Yeah. I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe it's just like a historical thing. It's pretty wild. Especially because on online forums or like Twitter or whatever and social media, people are all like, yeah, physical media, rah rah, and it's like, well, clearly you are in the overwhelming minority.
But they're the vocal ones. That's the key.
Yeah, and like even just like looking at the 26% of this graph that is just physical games related, or like I said, it's like a 4-to-1 ratio, almost a 5-to-1 ratio of digital sales to physical sales. So that's pretty crazy. That's all I got to say about this financially related thing. Did you want to talk about the EA thing or not? I don't know if you were joking when you brought up that we could talk about that.
I mean, we could just take the piss as a transition.
This just in. Company that is publicly traded
wants your money.
Yeah, exactly. Also, water is wet. More at 11.
Water is wet. Thank God, I'm thirsty.
I thought that report was ridiculous.
The article should have just said no shit at the end.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. Because like, I get it. It's like, oh, they're circulating a document internally about how like their revenue stream, right? Because making the loot boxes as profitable as possible is exactly what a company that makes most of its money off of loot boxes is going to do. Companies in general are always looking to make as much money as possible off of the things that they make money off of. That's just how companies work.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, the pie chart that we just talked about proves that.
Shows that that's where a lot of the spending is happening.
That is where a third of the spending is coming from.
Yeah.
Is your loot boxes and your microtransactions. The DLC is a flat, like, oh, I buy the expansion and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything else with it. Whereas the microtransactions, you're going to be coming back and back and back and back.
Yeah, they're recurring revenue, which is really good for the company. I know a lot of people don't like microtransactions because they think they're evil. They kind of are. But that document is like, it'd be like getting mad at a bakery for sending around a document like, how do we make people buy more cinnamon rolls? Obviously, the company wants to push sales of the things that they put out that are designed to make money. Like, whatever. And I'm going to go back to, like, what you said, the vocal minority, right? Like, there's a lot of people who bitch about stuff, but the fucking fact of the matter is that, like, the people who,
minority,
the people who play FIFA buy these fucking microtransactions, like, love buying these fucking microtransactions, love playing this fucking mode. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing it. That are like 90% of the player base is mentally ill. And I don't want to say that as like a taking the piss kind of thing, but like if you insinuate that they like every single player is being manipulated into spending money they don't have and don't want to spend on the game because they're not able to, then that speaks to a very, very large population of people around the world having mental illness problems. They don't have any self-control. They don't have any restraint. They don't have the ability to monitor or like the way that they're functioning as a human being. They all have an addiction to spending money on glorified gambling stuff. I don't think people realize that that's what they're saying when they say things like that about the entire population of people who play these games.
I mean, yeah.
I do get that like the way that microtransactions are implemented is like really, really shitty as it is, but like you have all of the control to not spend money on these games. And if you think that a game is, if you think you need to spend money to have fun playing the game, like more money than you've already spent, right? And you are upset with that, you can just stop playing the game. You have all of the control to do that. It's really that simple.
It might seem simple to us, but then there are people that like have that kind of addiction tendencies.
So I say that as somebody who has demonstrated some addiction tendencies. I used to play MapleStory, right? And I said I spent like $250.
That's still guppy level. That's not whale level.
Well, there actually is an entire video that someone did that may say otherwise, but anyway. But yeah, so I was playing the game and I just was not having fun. I wasn't having as much fun playing it. I kept playing it just out of like habit. Eventually one day I was like, no, this needs to stop. And I fucking uninstalled the game. Thought about maybe going back to play, but I'm like, no, I was not having fun. I know that the game probably didn't change in any meaningful way because that was the pattern that the developers, like that's the status quo. So I just never went back to playing it. Like I'm speaking from experience, it really is that easy. If you are truly upset with the way a game, anything about a game, if you are truly upset with the way it's monetized, if you are truly upset with the direction the developers have taken it in after an update, just stop playing the fucking game.
Yeah, I mean that would be our advice, but some people do kind of take it a little bit too personally, like they get almost kind of too involved.
Yeah, I don't know.
Almost to the point where they do like death threats, like going, "I can't believe you've done this update. I'm gonna plot your
demise
or physical harm of some sort." There are people like that.
I feel like part of the problem with that comes from the way that companies kind of advertise to us. They like want us to be dogmatic fans of the game so that we keep playing them. But when you generate a fan base of people who just like worship your game, then yeah, you end up with people who just like, they treat it like it's part of them. So when you change it, it feels like an attack on them. And that's like another thing that I think in general people need to stop doing. They need to stop associating the things that they like with their personal identity.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that I don't tend to get upset. I'll sometimes get, like for dramatic effect or whatever, get a little bit upset or a little bit like riled up on stream or on the podcast for things. But like in general, I want to say in my late teens, early 20s, learned how to like stop being a fervent fan of everything because it just makes your life so much easier. Nintendo releases a new shitty Animal Crossing. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's just
I knew Nintendo was coming up.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh, it's fucking this game's a piece of shit. I don't like it. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Things that I like don't reflect negatively on me. I'm more than the things that I enjoy. So in that way, it's like you just don't care. And in doing that, I also don't get as excited about things anymore. When people announce sequels to stuff that I enjoy, I don't tend to get super duper excited. I think the only thing that I was kind of like even a little bit excited about was Silk Song, the follow-up to Hollow Knight. And even then, I'm like, I would say that my reaction to that has been very subdued. Every time stuff about that, it gets announced, like a bunch of other people go and fucking just break the internet. I haven't really read or heard anything about it aside from somebody, like my buddy Charlie told me that the game was reported as being content complete, so the developers were maybe going to release it sometime this year, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I think that was my exact like response back to him, was like, oh yeah, that's cool. It'll be great when it comes out. Yeah, okay.
But the companies do want the hype, so that kind of
I feel
generates the traction.
I feel like they're kind of responsible for generating the troglodytes that attack them.
Yeah, well, it's that whole circle of fuckery. The developers want you to
circle of fuckery.
Get the hype, the journalists encourage the hype, the players encourage the hype, and it just goes round and round and round until you get your Cyberpunk 2077 or whatever.
Fallout 76, yeah.
Yeah.
No Man's Sky.
Your big disasters.
Yeah, unless you're smart enough to mentally take a step back and say, no, I'm not going to get excited about this. I'm just going to... I know some people really like doing that. I'd say it's generally... You should be very against getting excited about things for the exact reason I just listed. It's a fucking product. It's always a fucking product. Remember, never, ever mistake a video game as something more. It's a piece of entertainment that was designed by somebody to make money. Never, ever forget that. I know that people like to attribute
like a passion of love.
Yeah, and like more artsy stuff to the products that come out of this medium, but they are always products first. Never forget that. I know some people get very upset hearing me say that, but they are people who make video games and have a price tag attached to them, or, you know, they have like in-game app purchases and shit. They have always made that game first and foremost to make money. That is the intention of this. Same goes for films. When a film is made, unless the fucking creator puts it out for free and isn't making any money off of it, the fucking point of that film was to make the creator some money.
Well, yeah, it's the same for YouTube.
Same for YouTube, like, same for music, same for everything.
Ad revenue instead.
Yeah, exactly. If we live in a society where if we live in a society,
thank you, Joker.
But we
Is
do.
That a smile?
We live in such a way that everything we do, or at least a lot of the things we do, are usually motivated by some type of monetary gain. So never ever forget that. Fucking these companies are not your friends. They're selling you a product. Don't forget that shit.
We live in a capitalist society.
Yeah. If you ever have a problem with the way a company's operating or with the way a game is being like
socialism
handled, what? So what the fuck? No. You just stop.
Just wanted to catch you off guard.
You just stop playing. It's that simple. I say it as somebody who has done that for... I mean, MapleStory is like the biggest, most notable example for me. But like, I don't play Blizzard games anymore because that company can go eat a bag of baby dicks. Granted, I was already kind of off of playing Blizzard's games, but I have no intention of ever playing any of their future games. It's really that simple. If you just decide you don't want to support something anymore, you just stop supporting it. That's it. I feel like I've been talking too much. Do you have anything to add there, Jason, besides the fucking socialism?
I mean, the other takeaway from the whole article was that EA came out saying, no, we don't.
I don't even know why they tried to defend themselves.
I don't know why either. It's just funny at that point.
It's just like, oh, of course we try to fucking make money. We're a publicly traded company, you dingus.
If they had the balls to just say that instead, I'd actually have more respect for them.
They don't. They're a fucking bunch of dweebs. They never say that.
We are pro-consumer, yes.
For a company named Electronic Arts, there's nothing artistic about anything they put out.
Nope.
So Thomas asked 2 questions. I was thinking we could do one this week and another one on the next episode. Is there anyone that you are partial to?
No, I got notes for both, so
okay.
You can pick at random. I
have a little bit more to say about 2, but I feel like I've already talked a lot on this podcast, so we can go with 1 instead, even though I haven't really thought about it, so I guess I'm going to be doing it live. But so Thomas says, but there's a question at the end of it. So I started playing Red Dead Redemption 2 a couple of weeks ago, and near the start of the game, there is a train robbery. I had so much fun during the mission. The mechanics and the environment were great. It was really immersive. However, once the mission had finished, all I could think about was that I want this exact same game, but with a completely different theme. All I could think about was that I wish this game was based on the Kelly Gang. They're an Australian bush wrangler crime gang led by a fellow named Ned Kelly. I don't know if they're still a thing or if that's like an older thing. He didn't include specifics, but anyway, and their exploits. Have you ever had a similar experience that where you found yourself playing a game and wished that the setting was completely different? If so, what was it?
Oh, the Ned Kelly's from the 1800s.
Okay, so that's a a dated type of thing. But yeah, so
Actually, probably just around the same time as I think
Red Dead is
Red Dead
set.
2 is. I think. I could be wrong about that.
But yeah, so fundamentally the question is, have you ever played a game and then really enjoyed it but wished it was in a different setting or different theme or whatnot?
So I got a few examples here. I think one would be Spider-Man. I think I'm really sick of every Spider-Man game being set in New York. I think they could take a few chances and actually like put Spider-Man in like a new city of some sort.
Sorry, isn't all of his like everything in New York though?
It is, but like it'd be kind of cool if they did something like put him in some sort of alternate setting, like an alternate city of some sort. And maybe I've just not played those games, but
No, I'm pretty sure that all of his everything is in New York because it has tall buildings and it makes sense for a guy whose powers are based around swinging on tether ropes to be in a city full of tall buildings.
I don't know, but there's got to be other cities that I'm drawing blanks on
Toronto.
that could facilitate that in some degree.
Spider-Man goes to Dubai.
Sure, Spider-Man goes to Dubai. Spider-Man goes to Tokyo, Japan. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that'd be another good one.
Just put him in a different city for once. Like after you play like 2 or 3 games worth, even the new one. Like yeah, it is like the best version of it, but at the same time, I'm like okay, well I more or less know where in New York I need to kind of go.
Well, it's just like the city is designed in such a way that you're like, oh, this is very familiar. I don't want to see this anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, there's Central Park. It's in the middle of the city. Yep.
That checks out.
I know, like, New York is constantly like, evolving, so there are changes, but at the same time,
more cities exist in the
still
world
a city.
than New York
Yeah.
and Seattle and what's another fucking San Francisco. It's like the 3 American cities that are in every fucking video game.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm probably forgetting something else, but yeah. Las Vegas? No, not Las Vegas. I can only think of one game that's in Las Vegas. Anyway, what other examples do you got?
I think the internet would agree with me on this one. I think Assassin's Creed should really finally decide to be set in like China or Japan. Like you know how like assassins are like known for that kind of a setting. Like Assassin's Creed has never really done that other than I think Assassin's Creed Chronicles did like India, China, and then like I think Russia. Yeah, Russia or some sort.
Yeah,
but
Ubisoft.
They've never really done. Yeah,
I don't know if it's the right term, but it seems like they're afraid of covering like any country, like anywhere that like a non. I just come out and say it. They have a problem with doing a assassin character from any country where the assassin couldn't feasibly, like the main character in the real time couldn't feasibly be white. That's fundamentally what the issue is. Like they haven't done any assassins from. Well, I guess that's not true. They did have. I guess that's wrong. Until
on Black Flag, they did. The DLC had.
I'm not talking about DLC. I'm talking about like the main fucking thing. But like,
no, I know.
I was thinking like every single character's been white, but then I'm like, oh wait, no, the guy from Egypt. They actually did a character from fucking Egypt.
Yeah.
Which I'd forgotten about that. But yeah, so it's like there's like a ton of things they could do from like the Middle East and Africa kind of area, and then there's like a ton of stuff they could do from Asian areas, but they haven't, like I said, they did Egypt, but they haven't done any of the other ones or any other settings because fucking, I don't know, there's no white people there, and we can't market our game in North America to a mass audience unless it has a white person in the box. Don't at me, but I'm pretty sure that's why. It's because the marketing department can't figure out how to make a fucking non-white person video game sell in North America.
God, can you imagine, like, someone just pitching that idea to Ubisoft and then the marketing team going, no, we don't know how to sell this?
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like in just a side tangent, I feel like the big part of the reason why, because I've seen this like, quite prevailing attitude where Asian actors don't get cast a lot in roles that should be fulfilled by Asian actors in Hollywood, and there's been like a huge sticking point recently, and I almost feel like the whole reason why Ubisoft hasn't done China or Japan is because they're like, oh man, we can't have an Asian person be the main character, and it's like, what the fuck? Like a 2/3 of the, or not 2/3, well, actually maybe almost 2/3 of the world's population is from
at least half.
Yeah, at least half of the world's population is in Asia. I know that like maybe not the biggest video game markets are in Asia, but like holy fuck, like Asian people exist. Come on, guys.
Yep, I don't know what else to say to that. And I guess
just on that same topic though, like the kind of like the samurai age, I don't know what the actual term for that period of time is, but that's like commonly fantasized about in stories, media, besides video. I mean, even video games recently have had like a ton of samurai style stuff because people love that stuff. And then like the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the kind of more romanticized history of the Chinese Empire during a certain period of time. I don't know what period of time in their history that's called either. I'm not up on my history. But like that's another very popular setting for non-Assassin's Creed games. Like, there's a blueprint and a proven market for games that are set in like at least those specific kind of historical periods. So like I think it'd be an easy place to start.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely easy. It's perfect for Ubisoft. Big open areas. Mm-hmm. You have China, one of the biggest countries.
Yeah, fucking Great Wall could be half the map.
Maybe they're too scared to like make the entire Great Wall.
No, you think?
It would have to be easier than recreating the entirety of what was it in Assassin's Creed Unity.
Unity was London, wasn't it?
No, it was France.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh my god, I'm blanking on it. It burnt down.
The cathedral? Notre Dame?
Yeah, the cathedral.
Okay, what else? Hit me with your next example.
Well, this is more of an example of what has sort of happened. So, Dark Souls, I'd say it's good gameplay, but then you get the settings and it's just like very drab and not very colorful. And whereas I think that Sekiro Shadows Die Twice did a much better job with its color palette.
Yeah.
And its overall setting. So that's kind of just an example of one that I like know that I'm just like, oh yeah, no, Sekiro was a much better game for its setting and the evolution of the gameplay as well.
Yeah, no, I get you. That's like a big part of the reason why I actually picked it up over Dark Souls, because I'm like, not everything is dark and gross in this game. It actually looks like they discovered what color looks like.
I have played a bit of Dark Souls 3, and they did a better job with the color palette in that as well.
Yeah, I assume they probably would have.
More or less set in the same world, or it is set in the same world. But yeah, those are my main.
Okay, you might have to do some editing. I didn't necessarily come up with an example, but I'm just going to scroll through my Steam library here and see if anything pops out at me.
That's what I did.
Yeah, it's just like, this will probably be the easiest way to just kind of go through a thing and, like, oh yeah, this game would have been better if it was like this. I guess, no, because I kind of like the sci-fi setting of... Because I was going to say, like, I have a ton of fundamentally Metroid clones that I've bought on Steam. They also use the sci-fi setting. It's just that I really like the sci-fi setting, so I don't actually mind that they're using, like, they're basically just copying Metroid wholesale, because I actually like that setting, and I don't get that setting a lot outside, like, of Metroid games.
So you wouldn't want that, like, set in, like, medieval times or something like that?
Yeah, it's just it. It's like the Castlevania style games, right? Every time I'm playing Castlevania, I'm like, man, this would be so much better if it was sci-fi instead of medieval.
Oh, there you go. You want a futuristic Castlevania game.
Yeah, it already exists. It's called Metroid, and it's better.
Okay, well, I'm trying, man.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't tend to think about the theming of stuff as much. I usually just take it as it is.
Yeah, that's kind of more where I was going through my list. Like, that's like I came up with my examples, but I was just like, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just happy playing in the setting. Like, if I didn't want to play in that setting, I wouldn't have most likely picked up the video game.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of these. That or like the setting isn't a very big part of the experience, or like I don't get really immersed in settings, which is why I don't tend to think about them as much. Like I said, I like sci-fi stuff, but I'm not,
It's not a deal breaker.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not in there. Like, when you played, like, Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, like, that wasn't the deal breaker that it was...
No, the deal breaker was that game was intensely unfun.
Right.
I think I'm almost so much, like, focused on mechanics that I don't even think about stuff like this. Honest to God, I'm almost done looking through all of my Steam library, and there's, like, not a single one where I'd be like, oh yeah, I would want this to be changed from, like, X to Y.
Well, how about with Luigi's Mansion going from a mansion to a hotel? Is there anywhere else you'd kind of like to see Luigi do ghost hunting in, like, 4?
That's a very good example. I didn't think of that. I should have looked at my Nintendo games. They're the ones I've been more critical of. So, like, the hotel was cool, but for me, I can't beat that, like, the classic, like, the mansion in the first game. I know that it'd probably be very, very reductive to go through a mansion again, but, like, I don't know. It's just there's something, like, about exploring the creepy rundown mansion that wasn't really captured in Luigi's Mansion 3 with the hotel. I'd almost want to see like them go back to more of a creepy mansion kind of thing.
What about like a castle?
That could work. Kind of like
rundown castle.
Yeah, it's got that spooky vibe, right? With the fucking suits of armor and the stone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get the ghosts open up the
Yeah.
the suits of armor, and Luigi has to suck up the pieces in order to get them to actually suck up the ghost.
Yeah, I think they did something like that in one of the mansions in 2.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I don't know, like, plus with like a old medieval style castle, you could plausibly have booby traps and other kind of things that play into the
Mm-hmm.
environments without that being too much of a stretch. So that'd be pretty cool. What else? I'm thinking about Nintendo games here. Skyward Sword. Like, I know most people dunk on that game. I've kind of actively said that I actually don't mind it that much. But I really don't like the overworld in it. The game's kind of like split up into 2 zones. There's the zone in the sky, and then there's the zone under the clouds. And I really like exploring the zone under the clouds, but the stuff in the sky is just like really, really intensely boring to fly around.
Well, it just seems it's like a lot of open space. I
Yeah,
mean, it's an open world.
yeah. It's an open world in the same way that Wind Waker is, which is really not an open world. I wouldn't classify it as one. There's like a bunch of very, very small areas, and you can travel to them however you want, but there's nothing meaningful to do in between, or very little meaningful to do in between. At least with Wind Waker, there was like stuff in between, but like Skyward Sword is very much a logical extreme of Wind Waker's sailing, in that there's really not anything to do in the sky. For me, it'd just be nicer to play like the same kind of concept where you have these 3 distinct zones that you go into throughout the game and you return back to them, and as you return back to them, things have meaningfully evolved about the area, so it recontextualizes how you explore that area when you come back. Just get rid of the whole flying around in the sky bit, because like that's just so dog shit.
Well, as you've stated before, it's Nintendo, so they probably will never go back to it again.
Yeah, that's not how they do things. What else?
Pokemon's finally evolving its gameplay from
Yeah, I
the
don't.
turn-based to the open world thing, but that's not your cup of tea, so.
That's like a completely different thing, though, and I am pretty sure that that game is going to be terrible based off of what they've shown of it.
But it's just an alpha.
That's the common excuse that's used by people all over the internet to fucking give everyone a free pass on bullshit.
Oh, Frosty, I think you're just being a little harsh.
Maybe. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna throw in another one because this is one we talked about on the podcast already. Yakuza Like a Dragon. I wish that that was in the same neighborhood that the first 6 games are in. Kamurocho and Sutenbori.
Oh, you want the setting back. Oh, yeah. Instead of it just being the final chapter.
Yeah, I really liked seeing the modern day versions of those in Like a Dragon, but holy shitballs. That new area that I can't remember the name of. So yeah, I wasn't as big a fan of that area, or at least just the size of it. So like a lot of the time I was like, man, I wish I was in Kamurocho again. And then when we got to go to Kamurocho, I didn't even have to use the fucking map because I just knew where everything was already. Same with Sotenbori. I was like, oh, I know exactly where everything is. I know how to get around this space because it's
Yeah,
nice and
'cause
condensed and
yeah, well, as you just said, well condensed levels that
hmm
are memorable.
Yeah, where I spent actually longer playing through Yakuza Like a Dragon than I did Yakuza 0, and I couldn't tell you where anything on, or I could tell you where some things are in Jinsho, but I could not tell you where the overwhelming majority of things are. I kept having to use the map because I kept getting lost because of how big it was. I know where Homeless Cart is, and I know where the Bar District is, and like outside of that, I don't know where shit is.
That's fair.
I guess that'll be my answers. I probably didn't answer the question as well as Thomas would have liked, but as we found out earlier today, just in a conversation, I'm terrible at answering questions, so. Do you want to get into the games we've been playing? I have a lot of things listed here, so we might shuffle things around. I think it's your turn to start this week, yeah?
Yeah, it is. You know what? I'll start with the worst of the bunch. It's not even the worst, it's just
That's going to be the one that I already forgot the name of. The fucking...
the Caligula Effect.
Yeah.
Now, this is a game that's only on Vita, but then there was a updated version of it that had more story content on the PS4.
That's interesting.
The Caligula Effect is weird, to say the least, because the combat's a lot more engaging than I'd say Persona is, but the characters and the plot and the setting are very, very discount Persona.
Okay, so I don't know anything about this game, but you have just told me everything I need to know about this game. So it's like a JRPG like
Yes.
Persona then.
It's by Atlas and Sega.
Okay, so it's discount. Well, I guess it's not even discount Persona, it's from the same developers.
but it's like a discount on the Persona IP from them. One of the things you can do in this game is you could essentially recruit the 500 or so NPCs to be in your party. One plot point where, oh, I lost my entire team in this like maze-like dungeon. Better recruit a bunch of randos in order to not like get killed in this dungeon.
So it's like Pokemon, if everyone died.
All 500 students have essentially these 5 ranks, which I'll basically equivalent them to social links, except the social links is literally just talking to them and then saying, how was your day? Okay, whatever. Friendship up.
So it's not very involved, is what you're saying.
It's very not involved, at least in that regard. And the game says, like, oh, you might get, like, allies that are, like, so much stronger than yours, and I'm like, I got my set 4.
I have my group of Thunder Chads, and no one else can replace them.
Yeah, exactly. And then the main characters, and at least the main characters actually get, like, like the 2D silhouette. The randos that you pick up, they don't get anyone.
Is that like a visual effect?
Well, I mean, like, like the 2D drawing, like, or the character model on, like, visual novels, like, it's just like that.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand now.
Whereas the randos, you don't get anything. So it's like, okay, I have even less
attachment.
I care about these people less now,
yeah.
even than the other characters. So why would I ever change? Like, this makes no sense. Like, to recruit these 500. And they'll give you some tasks, essentially, to get them over, like, a certain rank. Some might be, oh, find this thing for me, or, oh, fight 100 dudes with me, and you'll resolve my problem. And I'm like, this part is just fetch quest the game, and that's really bad. The combat is kind of quasi-real time, because you can, like, set a bunch of moves, and then they all, like, chain up. And so I've got, like, a set where this one guy blasts, like, 6 hits, and then times, like, 3. One guy will, punch the person up in the air, and then the other 2 will be, like, prepped in order to, like, land attacks that are only get a hit in the air for, like, maximum damage. And at this point I found, like, the perfect ideal strategy, and like it's just you do the same thing over and over and over again. So it's a JRPG.
I love when games never ever challenge your preconception of the combat system and just allow you to continue to spam the same combo over and over again to win.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not very engaging.
Yeah.
I can't speak for the sequel. I know the sequel at least runs a lot better on the Vita. It's like, I think when you have the full party, it can hit like the 20 to 25 frames, and so it's
sweet Jesus.
Yeah, it's not really well optimized.
I'm just looking at what I assume is the cast of characters.
Yeah, they are very bland.
Well, I was going to say, it's like, design-wise, I see that classic Atlas art, but they forgot that colors exist.
They decided that everyone's hair was just going to be black, brown, or gray.
Yeah, or just even the way they're dressed, all in, like, there's a lot of black, gray, and white. It's
very, very dull and boring.
I'm surprised, because, like, the cast of at least the cast of Persona, no, even the cast of Persona 4.
Nope, all
4
and
4 and 5 are the 2 I know of, and the casts are very colorful in those.
Even 3 has more color.
Yeah, so this is really strange.
It is a very strange one. I picked it up just like a long time ago, actually, and found it in my library.
Was it on the back of the fact that you enjoy Persona?
In general, just Atlas games I enjoy, so...
Okay.
And I wouldn't say directly Persona, but I thought, why not give this a whirl? But yeah, it's just missing a lot of color, and it's average, to say the least.
Fair.
So,
we'll
move on to one that... Oh.
Before we start that, can we just take a quick break? I need to use the washroom.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. I will be right back. I guess I'll leave the recording going.
This episode of the Frosty Canucks podcast has been brought to you by Big Chungus.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay, on from one dark game to another dark game?
No, I'll go to the one that you're probably happy I'm playing, Monster Hunter World.
Yay!
After enough peer pressuring.
Okay,
and
hold on. I'm gonna make this official, because you keep lying to people.
Do you have to correct the record?
Yeah, I'm gonna go on record here. When you showed me that you had a computer, you were the one who said Rise in 2022.
I said Rise in 2022. I didn't say Monster Hunter World in 2021.
Yeah, but like this is just helping to bridge the gap, so you're ready for Rise.
God fuck it. Fine.
Besides, it's got like not crap loading times because you're playing on PC.
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to just put in the disc for
The PlayStation, just to see how slow it is.
PS4 just to see how slow it is as a comparison.
I've heard nothing but bad things.
I might just wait till the PS5 for that, and maybe not even.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you play it on PC, there's no point now.
Probably not, yeah.
So yeah, Monster Hunter World. How are you finding that?
I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it's fun hunting the monsters. It's fun. Like, visually, I enjoy seeing the monster, like, being whittled down over time. I think, as you pointed on stream before, like, oh, you can tell when the monster's, like, in a very weakened state.
Yeah.
Because it does a lot of good things with its animation in order to, like, kind of
Convey that.
Show that. Yeah, convey that. Most of the time being that they will return to their nest when they're really low on HP, and you kind of know, oh, this is the end game for the fight.
Yeah. Plus the other thing is, like, they don't have health bars, so it's actually, like, really nice that visually the monsters, like, you can see it getting tired over the course of the hunt as you're beating the shit out of it, or it's beating the shit out of you, one or the other. So you're still in low rank.
I'm still in low rank, correct?
How far are you now? Because I asked you earlier today, but I saw you were playing it before the podcast, so...
I got to the I think it's the underground?
The Rotten Vale?
Valley? Yeah, the Vale. I just got there and I fought the first monster there.
Okay.
The one that's got all the bones. I forgot its name.
Radabon.
Okay, a Radabon.
So you're
I wrote
like...
the other ones down.
You're like quite literally right where Pete and I were on the last stream that we were doing of Monster Hunter together.
Cool.
And you said you're playing the longsword.
I am playing the longsword.
You disgusting weeaboo.
Okay.
The longsword is the most weeb weapon.
Fine by me.
I didn't figure you'd have a problem with that.
Oh no, my feelings are hurt. Oh wah wah wah. Whatever will I do?
So have you figured out how to use the foresight slash yet?
I'll work on that eventually.
Because when you know how to do that, you're better than 99% of... Don't la 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 over top of me. When you can do that, you're better than 99% of the people who play longsword. I'm not joking. People who play longsword are terrible at the game, by and large. Well, it's just because there's like a lot of them. Well, I said it's the most popular weapon by a very, very, very large margin, so... The problem with the longsword that makes it so easy is that it's very fast. It has a ton of different options for giving you a ton of iframes. You don't even have to hit reliably for them to work.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, like, if you use the foresight slash and you miss, you still got 45 frames of invincibility. And the weapon also reaches super far, so, like, it has all of the advantages of, like, other weapons and none of the drawbacks, which is just like, oh god, why does this weapon even exist? So my problem with the longsword is always, like, from a balancing perspective, is that it's, like, really, really, really powerful, but there's no trade-offs. The greatsword has, like, some of the highest damage numbers in the game, but it's slow and chunky. So, like, the trade-off is the fact that you have to be really, really well positioned for it. The charged blade is extremely powerful, but it's also extremely complex. So the trade-off there is that you have to, like, learn how to do really, really involved combos and know, like, a lot of different moves in order to successfully play the weapon extremely effectively. The dual blades are really, really high DPS, but you have to burn stamina, which means that you're playing very aggressively and potentially you're not going to be able to get out of a dicey situation. They're also really, really short. So against really tall monsters, they're very disadvantaged.
Or flying monsters, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The longsword can just do it all and has no trade-offs on it, which is, to me, it's like, oh god, this weapon's just... why? And then, yeah, obviously a lot of people play it because it's super duper weeby, because, you know, it's like a katana. But on top of that, the fact that it's, like, also one of the most broken-ass weapons in the game.
I mean, I didn't know it was the best weapon in the game,
On paper, it kind of hits all of the perfect things to be the best weapon in the game.
As you described, yeah, definitely.
I think the charge blade might be better if you're playing, like, completely optimally speedrunner style, and the bow as well. For the average fucking bumblefuck player, the longsword is, like, the most S-tier weapon in the game.
I mean, I'll probably play through the game and then just switching to a different weapon.
Yeah.
Kind of unlock all the hunts and try some new stuff.
That's kind of what I ended up doing. Are you using the clutch claw at all? I know that's like an extra mechanic that was added in Iceborne, but they've kind of rebalanced the entire game so that it works with the clutch claw.
Yeah, I mean, at least at low rank, I'm not having kind of the complaints that you had.
Yeah, it'll be a lot worse when the monsters move a lot faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like right now, it really helps getting up and close and tenderizing.
Or even just smashing the monsters into the wall, which I'm sure you've seen me do enough on stream that you're just like, oh, this is that thing that Steve does. So
yeah, did the tutorial and then immediately knew how to do that.
yeah, exactly.
I think I've gotten like 3 monsters so far to go into the wall.
Yeah, and I think some of the maps you're on are not. They don't have like as many open spaces, so it's a little bit less annoying. And I don't think you'll run into as many of the issues with clipping. You've seen that a few times on stream where it's like,
Yes.
I clearly sent the monster into the wall and it just like skids along the side of the wall and you're like, what the hell just happened?
I don't know if that might have happened once for me, but because I wasn't really paying attention and I was just like, that monster definitely should have hit the wall, but oh well.
The more you play, the more of that you're going to notice.
Oh no.
It's one of those things that never stops being frustrating. So yeah, you're like right at the part where it's going to start introducing what are like some of the harder monsters in the game.
Okay.
You've
I mean,
also
that makes sense.
done the optional hunts, yeah?
I've done some of the optional hunts. I'm still chipping through them every so often.
Okay, did you fight Rathian? She only comes up if you do optional hunts. She's not actually in the main campaign.
No, I've only done I think I've done the 1 and the 2-star one so far, and then
Okay, yeah, she's like a 4-star one.
I'm working towards those.
Yeah, she'd be in the same tier as Anjanath.
I will say I have not seen the cart screen yet.
Okay.
I have not been downed yet, so.
I am not as good at video games as you because I had seen the card screen many times by that point in the game.
So I'm playing this like after most of Dark Souls, so
Yeah, I gotta imagine that probably helped.
It helped a lot, like going, I'm not gonna be greedy. I'm only gonna do 1 or 2 hits, then I'm gonna fuck off and then come back and then I'm gonna punish you because that's what Dark Souls teaches you. And
yeah.
I'll get into Dark Souls in a little bit because that's the other game. If that's not clearly obvious at this point.
Yeah. Anyway, so generally speaking, you're enjoying it so far?
I am enjoying it so far. That'd be correct.
Have you run into like any kind of mechanical roadblocks, or are you still you're still figuring it out pretty easily?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know. So part of the problem is I've got a PS4 controller and
it's Xbox buttons.
It's Xbox buttons, so
yeah,
it took about 2 or 3 hours for me to like really get down what was each button, and then now I just don't really have to even look at the prompts. So
you'll find that when I get asked questions about like button controls, I have to like pick up a controller and then like think about what the move is that I want to do, and then actually look down at the controller and see what my hands are doing, because I know what all of the buttons are for things. I just don't know what they like. I couldn't tell you what they are because I intrinsically know what the motion is for the thing I want to do.
Right.
I had the same thing happen with fighting games as well, where I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I want to do. I just know how it feels. I don't know what the actual. If you asked me what I'm doing, I couldn't tell you.
And what was the playback on your play right there, Frosty? It's
a bunch of question marks.
What buttons did you press? No.
The ones that mattered.
No.
Hopefully.
That's your interview.
What were you thinking there? I was thinking, what is he thinking that I'm not going to do? And then I did that thing, and I was right. It's fundamentally how I play fighting games every single time.
And then we went 4D chess, and we were like, what's he going to do? And then what's he going to do? And what am I going to do? Well, what is he going to think that I'm going to do?
You're joking about that, but that is how I play fighting games.
No, I know. That is how the fighting game community works.
Yeah, for me, it's much less of a mechanical experience. It's much more of a like, okay, how do I make you sad? And
how do I punish you?
Yeah.
You insolent.
That's just it. Where I'll do things deliberately to just be like, all right, what's the thing I can do that they are not going to expect me to do, but I just piss them off so they start making more mistakes.
That's a valid strategy.
Yeah, I just like making people feel weak and shitty. Maybe I am evil.
Did we not already...
Yeah, I'm probably across the chronicling of this podcast. We could just rename it to Frosty's an evil piece of shit. That might be the episode title. But yeah, so you're having fun with Monster Hunter then. So you're not just like, oh yeah, I just bullied you into playing a game you're not enjoying. You're actually enjoying it.
Yeah, it's bullied with air quotes. Frosty did send me like, this is the price to get it. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
okay.
when the whole thing was on sale.
And then I'm like, historical records of this sale, and it's like, okay, it's not even worth waiting for June. Okay, fine, I'll pick it up now.
Yeah, I think that was the all-time low that it had been at.
Yes, I think it's been that low before, but yeah, you were correct. It was the lowest it had ever been, so... Yes, thank you for recommending it. I'm sure our viewers are...
sick of hearing about Monster Hunter, but that's too fucking bad.
Man, when Rise comes out and...
God damn it, when Rise comes out next year, it's gonna be fucking just like a month or more of episodes.
It's gonna be the only game we play, and it's gonna be the whole
It's not gonna be the only game we play. I don't think I could just play it by itself for fucking months, but yeah, certainly for the first couple of weeks when I have it, it'll be like the only thing I'm playing.
No, I just meant like one episode.
Oh yeah, there's definitely next year. There's gonna be a fucking Rise episode where it's just Monster Hunter Rise the entire time.
We have no news, we have no topics, we have no viewer questions. We're just like
an hour and a half.
Unless it's a viewer question about Rise.
Yeah, it's an hour and a half of Monster Hunter Rise. Fuck you. This is what we're doing. It's our podcast.
It's gonna be the worst performing one too.
Don't say that. It'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy if you say it like that.
Okay, it'll be the best performing one then.
There you go. And then Dank Souls.
Dank Souls Remastered, yes.
I think I've spoken about the collaboration thing that I was going to do with Megan.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, so like Miranda and you have both now said, like, are you sure you want to play Dark Souls? Because it doesn't seem like something you'd enjoy.
It does not seem like something you would enjoy.
So can you walk me through the specific reasons why you have come to that conclusion?
Do you enjoy fighting the same fight over and over again? And now I would say, like, for Monster Hunter, you kind of do.
Yeah.
But I think Monster Hunter would be a bit more engaging than getting killed off right away, because you have the multiple retries, whereas with Dark Soul bosses, you got one chance, and then you have to run all the way back.
Yeah, Monster Hunter's got more of a back and forth, if you've observed before.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that's not the case with every boss is Fatalis, but worse.
And every enemy is a mini-boss. For the most part.
Jesus Christ.
At least when you're starting. You can kind of get some early weapons that are a bit more overpowering.
Isn't Dark Souls designed in such a way where you kind of just choose a weapon you like, and that's like a weapon you can use for the entire game?
No.
Oh.
You gotta get a better weapon to deal increased damage, so that you have to fight the boss less, because the longer you fight the boss, the more likely that they're going to 1-2 KO you.
Yeah, or that you'll make a mistake.
So I had to fight one boss probably for about 4 to 5 hours before I really got a handle on them.
Shit, it's Cuphead all over again. No.
Yeah, you're... I will, once I figure out what the boss's name was. It's been a while since I fought them, because that was most of Saturday afternoon to evening I was fighting that, and then Sunday morning, after finally resting and giving myself a break, defeated in like 3 attempts.
I was gonna say, I'd probably do the same thing I did with, like, when I was fighting Alatreon and Fatalis, which was to fight them enough to learn their move pool, and then stop.
Sleep on it.
Yeah, just like stop, take a break, and then come back later, and then it's like the fucking, those attempts after I've had the break are the attempts where it's like it finally happens.
Yeah, so the bosses' names are Dragon Slayer, Ornstein, and Executioner Smog.
Oh, Pikachu and Snorlax.
Pikachu had a Lance, and yeah, Snorlax, yeah, that's pretty...
Yeah, I was going to say the community name for them is Pikachu and Snorlax, because the Lance-wielding one uses electricity, right?
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one's a fat fuck, so it's Pikachu and Snorlax.
Could you imagine Snorlax having a freaking hammer?
Yes, actually. They're like infamous, because when you kill one of them, the other one becomes super hard, right?
This is correct. Now that you know this, I will now talk about that.
Oh, no, yeah. I know this. They're like one of the most infamous bosses in all of Dark Souls.
Yeah, I mean, I looked it up and I'm like, oh, if I beat this boss, do I beat the game? And it's like, most of the articles were like,
nope.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, they're the final boss?
They're not the final boss, but they're one of the hardest bosses in the game.
Oh, okay, I understand.
So if you beat this, you pretty much have beaten Dark Souls. Like, it's just, at that point, it's progressed through the game.
Yeah.
Which, after I beat Ornstein and Smog, I killed, like, the next 3 bosses, like, 1 attempt each.
Yeah, I was going to say...
one death each.
Isn't Pikachu and Snorlax, like, they block off the part where the game becomes non-linear again, and you can fight, like, the 4 lords, right, afterwards?
Yeah, it's way more open once that happens.
Because they can't account for which boss you're going to fight next. The difficulty curve across all 4 of them is flat. So by the time you get, like, the first one will be the hardest one you fight by virtue of you being the least leveled up. And then, like, each progressive one, you'll be a little bit stronger because of progression. So the boss fight will be even easier to beat, in theory.
Yeah. So, I mean, the key to this fight, and I'll give you this as, like, a hint, is, like, to keep them separated.
Obviously.
But, like, one of the problems is you have to kill one of them and then the other, like, powers up. So
Do they heal again when they're powered up?
Yes.
Or is it okay? So there's no.
So-
So you have to take out one of them, and then you have to take out the full other one.
Yes. It's not that they're just like the same size and it's powered up. They're much, much bigger.
So did you fight Pikachu or Snorlax?
I fought Pikachu.
Okay. Is fighting Pikachu the meta?
It's much harder, yes.
Oh, Snorlax is so it's easier to take out Pikachu and then to take out Snorlax?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Apparently on a second playthrough, because I am trying to get all the achievements for this, it's much easier to do the harder version or
On the
fighting.
easier difficulty and then do the harder one or the easier one on the New Game Plus?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I guess if you're achievement hunting, yeah.
that might be part of why I was having some struggle, but even so, like some attempts I just couldn't even get a hit because he's got
Jesus
this.
Christ.
He's got this really annoying charge attack, and if you don't know that it's coming, because he'll just whip around the entire map, and sometimes he'll be behind Snorlax essentially, and then you won't even see his animation to do it, and he's just like, "I'm gonna get you."
That's super obnoxious.
I think I have a clip of it. I've been meaning to
Post on Twitter.
edit it up and put it on Twitter, but I do not like Ornstein. His one moveset. It's some grade A bullshit.
It's some stray bullshit.
So, yep. Dark Souls 1 is really good because it's like the exploring aspect, even though,
Yeah, I think I'd really like that aspect of the game.
yeah, I think you'd enjoy that part. You're going to hate this part with the fighting Ornstein and Smog.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's
Yeah.
it's the first real thing that like kind of slaps you and says, "This is Dark Souls, bitch."
Yeah, I figure with Megan kind of sherpaing me through the experience, she'd be like, alright, you gotta take out Pikachu first. And then
She
fight
probably will say that
Snorlax.
first.
I'm not gonna be doing achievement runs, I'm just looking to finish the game, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just making my life easier for the second playthrough.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The last thing I want to do is play Dark Souls over and over and over again.
Oh god. What weapon are you using?
So, short sword, and
Okay.
I've got one that's flamed, and it's got the soul of this like flaming spider that you'll fight. That one's mandatory.
Gwendolyn? No. Yes. The
Not
spider
that
with the titties on top, right?
Oh yeah,
I know a lot about this game considering I've never played it before.
Qualag.
Quaalag.
Qualag, that's it.
That's the one.
Chaos Witch Qualag boss.
Yeah, I know a surprisingly large amount about Dark Souls considering I have no idea how to play it.
I died like three or four times, but she's actually pretty easy once you kind of get her moveset down. And that's the thing with like this game. A lot of it is like once you know the moveset, you're probably gonna like die the first time, but once you've like got the rhythm, for the most part, you should be fine. However, unfortunately, that breaks down when you have to fight two enemies at the same time.
I was gonna say, Dark Souls seems like a game where one-on-one fights are
fair.
a lot less shitty than not one-on-one fights.
Yeah, you're gonna want to kind of aggro one enemy at a time. So like you'll get really close, and then you'll like notice that they move a little bit, and then you're like, okay, gonna back up, gonna lead him into a one-on-one fight, and then that's it, and then aggro the next one.
I kind of did that a lot in Sekiro, though, so that's not something I'm totally not used to, although I feel like in Sekiro the maps are designed in such a way that like it's very easy to do that, to like just walk forward, get the attention of one thing, and then like kill him, and then do it again and again and again.
You can kind of stealth in this one if you walk up really closely. If you can in the back, you can do like a critical hit, and that'll be, it's a 2 to 3 hits worth of damage. So you can sometimes almost one-shot an enemy.
You sneak around behind them when they do an attack. Get that backstab.
Oh yeah, if you circle around some enemies, you can just get the backstab. There'll be one guy with a spear, and he'll be like stabbing, and you just circle around him. He won't even be able to hit you, and you just backstab.
Gotcha, bitch!
Free souls. Pretty much, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to talk about Dark Souls. I think I've got like 4 or 5 bosses left, and I'll be done.
Cool.
Your games.
Hold on, I'm gonna real quickly, because the Golden Week sale is going on Steam right now. You should pick up any Japanese games you're interested in. It's Dark Souls Remastered is not on sale, even though it's a Japanese game. What the fuck?
June for you.
Bet all the other fucking Sekiro on sale. Sekiro is not on sale. FromSoft just fucking missed the memo. Okay.
That's shitty.
It's fine. I'm just gonna have to wait until the fucking summer sale.
The Summer Madness sale?
Yeah, the big Chungus summer sale. Oh, look at that. Steam's like, hey, you like Disgaea, how about Disgaea 2? 80% off. It knows.
Is that where you want to start?
Yeah, sure, Disgaea. I'm almost done it, Here's my problem. I made a critical error, and that cost me, so I have to do some like extra grinding that I would not have had to do.
Oh.
But it's like, it's my fault, so...
Did you sell a piece of equipment by mistake?
No, so in Disgaea, you can run the item dungeons, and that makes your items stronger, right? So I had done that on a few key characters, and they were kind of carrying my party.
Oh.
And so I got to a point where I realized that most of my party was like really underleveled, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should level them up. You know how last episode rather, I said you could like pick up enemies and throw them? And
yes.
You can pick up your characters and throw them for tactical advantages. So if you take the enemies and you throw them on top of each other and they're the same species, they'll fuse into one enemy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like, let's say like a zombie, for example. So you take like a level 20 zombie and you throw a level 20 zombie on top of another level 20 zombie, it becomes a level 40 zombie. So knowing that, you go into a map, and there's several of them that have 100% EXP bonuses, and you take all the enemies and you stack them into one mega enemy, and then you just team kill them, and you try to make whoever you want to get all the EXP do the last hit,
and
then you watch their level go up by like 20 all at once, which is hilarious.
This is a game where like you can get like 9,999, or like I think it's even more than that.
Yeah, and for the story purposes, you only really need to get to, if you're keeping pace with the enemies, you'd be at around level 100. My party's at, I think they're like level 70. I just don't have the heart to keep grinding them anymore. But the thing is, I like looked online and I'm like, okay, I gained like however many stats from leveling up, but it seems like leveling up has actually not really helped me out that much. Like for a while I was really, really, really strong compared to everything, but now I've hit a point where the enemies are very clearly stronger than I am, and I was like, okay, do I need to like double back and grind for fucking ever? The answer to that question is no. I need to actually spend some time upgrading my gear. So I got like a bunch of gear that was way stronger than the items I'd leveled up after upgrading the shop a couple of times. I'm now at a point where like if I just run some item dungeons on Laharl and Etna, their stats will fly through the roof because the equipment has much more meaningful stat gains than leveling up would provide. Plus, you can just like run through item dungeons really, really quickly. If you're not, I'm not trying to like level anyone up, so I'm just going to be I'm going to be trying to get to the exit as quickly as possible. So that'll lead to a lot of like crazy chain throwing type things to level up the gear as quickly as possible. So because I'd spent a lot of last weekend playing through most of the story and doing like a little bit of grinding in between, I was kind of tired of playing the game. So I was like, okay, I'm going to save running a bunch of item dungeons for next weekend, and then I'll finish the game up. I'm pretty sure I'm like right at the end. So like for people who've played Disgaea, I finished the fight against Volcanus with like a party that just barely scraped by. And then when I had to fight the Seraph, I like went into the fight and my characters were doing almost no damage to him, at which point I said, okay, I need to upgrade my gear. There's no way to get around this. I am too weak for this fight. This guy has 20,000 HP and I can do 200 damage per hit to him. I do 1% of his health every time I hit him. There's no way I can finish this fight the way that I am right now. I need to be able to survive hits better with stronger amounts of defense, and I need to be able to do more meaningful damage, which will come from like upgrading the weapons by running the item dungeons. So yeah, I just need to double back and do that because I've kind of been neglecting that aspect of the game, and I think that will make up the difference, and then I can kind of square that away. I'm not planning to delve too deep into the post-game with it. I was just going to kind of put it aside and then pick up either Disgaea 2 or Disgaea 5 on Steam, or actually any of the Disgaea games, and then kind of delve into one of those a little bit more, specifically because I kind of know what I'm doing now, and also because in every game beside the first one, healers gain XP from healing. And that not being a thing in Disgaea 1 is pissing me off so much because I literally have no healers that are like high level because, oh god, leveling them up is such a pain in the ass.
I can imagine.
I have Flan, but I don't like Flan very much. She's a piece of shit. Although Etna has healing spells because her like minion is my healer, so I just like gave her all the healing spells. So Etna's kind of like a dollar store brand healer. She does an alright job healing, mostly by virtue of the fact that she's borderline unkillable, which I guess is a good thing for a healer, isn't it? And then when you're not healing with them, you can she just deletes things. So yeah, I guess she's kind of like a great healer in that regard. My more like dedicated cleric unit is like actual trash garbage that I can like not. I've just had such a hard time leveling her up the entire game to the point where I just kind of gave up on her. But yeah, Disgaea is really, really fun. I haven't changed my opinion from before. It's a
Good.
very, very fun game. So I remember we talked about, well, we mentioned Turnip Boy on one of the episodes of the podcast before, so I can talk about Turnip Boy now.
Did you pay your taxes?
Yeah, I paid my taxes. Oh yeah, that's right. You bought Turnip Boy for me. Thank you for buying that.
You literally said I've got nothing to buy or nothing to play, and I was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
this came out.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because I was thinking about maybe picking it up.
Maybe
or not.
Maybe don't.
Okay.
I'm not really big on the length of a game. Like, I won't be critical of a game for being like, I'll be critical of a game for being like too long instead of too short. Turnip Boy is about 90 minutes.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that is much shorter than I thought it would be.
Yeah, the demo I played of the game was about a fifth of the game, which I was not expecting.
Wow, you could almost finish this and refund it.
Actually, I could. I'm still under the 2 hour limit, and I have all the achievements in the game.
Your call.
I'm not gonna do that. That's a fucking dickhead. That's a dickhead thing to do. The main thing it's kind of going for is to be really funny. It's just that it's like anything where the gimmick is that it's supposed to be funny. So if you don't find the humor really connects with you, then the whole thing is kind of just. There's like some moments where I kind of was like, oh, that's like cute. That's kind of funny.
Another moment you rolled your eyes.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where I was just like rolling my eyes like, okay, sure. And then like the core gameplay is not very involved at all.
So I mean, it's Legend of Zelda-esque, right?
It's like a stupid man's version of Legend of Zelda, yeah. You, well, like in Zelda, you kind of have to like, at least there's puzzles and you kind of have to think about things. There's one mechanic kind of that requires you to think a little bit, but other than that, a lot of the game is very, 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 it's not involved enough or like fun enough by itself to where I was like engaged with it. So I was mostly just wandering around doing the thing and then going on to the next part of the game. Because like I said, the main gimmick is that it's supposed to be funny, but I'm like, you should have made the game fun and funny so that you could fall back on the game being fun when a joke falls flat. But yeah, for me, it was a little bit too pedestrian to be fun. That and the other thing is that the world is really small, and you notice that the world is really small because the game constantly sends you on fetch quests from one end of the world to the other. I swear to God, not a single fetch quest in this game exists where you're not wandering from like the polar ass opposite end of one part of the map to the other end of the map. It's like very transparent that the game designers did this to stretch out the length of the game, so it feels really artificially padded in that regard.
And they didn't even get it over the 2 hour mark.
No.
Wow. That seems like a missed opportunity on them, just at least to get it past the refund point.
I don't know. Miranda also...
I know you won't, but I mean...
Yeah.
I know other people definitely would be like, oh, well, I finished it.
I mean, a lot of people probably looked at it and were like, oh, it's cute and it's funny or whatever. I didn't find that myself. Miranda also played it and didn't think very much of it, so... It's one of those games where I feel like the trailer was probably better than the actual game itself. Yeah, I mean, still thank you for buying it, but, like, it was not... It can't all be zingers.
Oh, well.
Yeah, so...
Well, now we know.
Other people will probably maybe have more fun with it than I did. I just didn't find it very engaging. But for a Zelda game that you can buy, or maybe you already own, that is engaging, you should play Lena's Inception. So I played the back half of that on stream last week.
Yeah, after some technical difficulties.
Yeah, that was so weird.
For those who weren't unable to join, you had to play in windowed mode. Otherwise, it just lagged a lot of frames.
Yeah, for some reason on my screen it was fine, but when I looked at the stream when I was playing in full screen, it would just like...
It was shit tier.
Yeah, it just like kept looking like it was dropping frames even though the stream was running fine. And then when I put it in windowed mode, it like ran the way it was supposed to. So I was like, I have never seen that happen before.
It was Rogers, and Rogers wanted to... It's clipping your internet.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so that game is a Zelda-like game, and the further into the game you get, the more and more original ideas it has. So it starts off very like, oh, this is clearly just an indie game that was inspired by The Legend of Zelda. Ain't no shit. If you're just looking for like a Zelda-y style experience, it's very good in that regard. But the further in you get, the more it kind of leans into its own unique mechanics, and the kind of like premise is that like the whole world is a video game world, and they know it's a video game, or at least some characters seem to be aware that it's a video game world. So it's like super duper glitching out, and there's like a handful of mechanics that are introduced that play around the fact that the world is glitching out. And like the last one you get was probably my favorite, which just like lets you fucking like walk through walls and like clip out of the fucking map and shit. It was very fun in the same way that like Baba Is You was fun, although it wasn't even remotely as complex as Baba Is You is. So don't be off-put if if you played Baba Is You and then were like, oh man, that game was too challenging for me. I think Lenna's Inception does a really, really, really good job in that regard.
So how long does it take to get to that kind of original idea point?
I think the game took me about 6 hours to finish. So I think for the first kind of like 2 or 3, I was sort of like, oh, this is fine, but it's not setting my world on fire. And then kind of after that point, I was a lot more interested in that. I think you could see that on the stream as well. Kind of when I got to like the mid part where the world you went into like the second half of the world, that was when I started to have a lot more fun with the game.
Right.
So if it was about 6 hours, then I'd say that the kind of like back half of the game is the better half of the game. But your mileage may vary. I think it's on Steam, but if you bought the Racial Justice Equality bundle from Itch.io. If you bought that from itch.io last year, you already have the game. It's in there. Just search your almost 2,000 games and it'll come up. And you can download the latest version of it, and it's pretty good. Speaking of games I have from the itch.io bundle, I also had a short hike downloaded from when I downloaded a bunch of games from that. And so I played through a short hike.
Was it short?
Yeah, it was short. It was exactly what it was on the 10. It took me about 90 minutes to finish, maybe a little bit more. It's a quaint little game. As the name implies, you go on a short hike. You're playing as a kind of like an amorphous Animal Crossing style bird, and you are expecting a phone call. But you're in some remote ass location, so you can't get a cell signal. So then your aunt is like, you need to climb to the top of this mountain, and then you should be able to get cell reception. So you go on a short hike to get to the top of the mountain.
And do you get said cell reception?
Yeah, so like the whole premise of the game is like you'll like walk to the mountain's like base, and you'll get there and you'll be like, oh, you need to collect golden feathers, otherwise you can't get up the mountain. At which point you'll spend a bunch of time, because like the golden feathers act as like stamina, so you can't climb without them.
Oh, okay.
Or fly for that matter. You'll go around the island and you can like find them by exploring. You can find them by doing tasks for people. So there's like a ton of like little kind of like stories and quests and shit you can do as you're exploring the island. Or there's like treasure hunts you can do. You'll get a clue and you have to decipher the clue, and then that will lead you to where the treasure is. Sometimes those are golden feathers, and other times it's just if you get to a location that's particularly somewhat challenging to get to, that can give you a golden feather as well. And then when you have at least 7 of them you need to be able to scale the mountain. I think I had 10 when I actually went up the mountain and got to the top. And yeah, it was a nice little game. You just take it at your own pace.
That sounds cool. And you said it was part of the bundle, so you might have it free, viewer, listener.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't, I think it's on Epic and Steam, and it's only like $10. I don't know if I'd want to pay that much for it, but it is certainly, if you donate it to the Racial Equality bundle on itch.io, it's already there. You should just fucking play it. Now into some real meat and potatoes games. I've fucking played a lot of short games over the last 2 weeks. Titanfall 2.
And what did you think of Titanfall 2?
It's very okay.
Just very okay.
You can put a fucking booing sound effect in there if you want in the fucking posts. But yeah, so a lot of people compared this game favorably.
No, I don't have to edit.
So a lot of people compared this game really favorably to Doom 2016 because they came out in the same year. I would say that Doom is a much better game, and I would say that Doom Eternal, the sequel to Doom 2016, is an unquantifiably better game, even though I had my issues with Doom Eternal. So
I was gonna say, wait a minute.
Doom Eternal, I didn't like the boss fights, and I didn't like the one enemy type that was basically a boss fight. But other than that, Doom Eternal is fucking amazing.
Okay.
So the kind of like big issue I have with Titanfall is that and I want to write an article about this, but I'll just probably end up going back and cribbing kind of what I'm saying here. So in this tutorial, you're showing how to use all the different movement abilities of the pilot character, and a lot of them are designed around kind of like platforming and gaining momentum and maintaining momentum. That's fine.
There's a part where in that you have to you can race around and get a high score.
Yeah. And then after that, it brings you out to like a shooting range, and it's like, okay, here's how you shoot. And then, like what you just said, it puts you in like a gauntlet style shooting range where it combines the two, like using the movement abilities and shooting at the same time. It will give you a score there, and it also sets the difficulty of the game.
Mm-hmm. That's very trademark of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Like the gauntlet would always kind of dictate, like, oh, you got this score, this is your difficulty.
Yeah.
Same from Modern Warfare Remastered.
It does let you choose what you want for the difficulty, but it defaults it, like it says, like, hey, here's what we recommend based on how you did the gauntlet, which is fine.
Easy
like
baby mode for you.
Put me at normal, you piece of shit.
I know. I think that's really the default, actually.
Yeah, it probably is. The game plays fine at normal. But yeah, so like that whole gauntlet is really cool because you have like these movement-based abilities and you're shooting while using them. So having done that, I, being a reasonable human being, assumed that the rest of the game would be like
Madness! That. Mad Frosty.
Yeah, it's not at all like that. I was mistaken. So the movement abilities and the fucking shooting might as well have not even been shown to you being used at the same time in the gauntlet because the game almost never lets you ever use them both at the same time. It constantly flip-flops back and forth between here's a segment where you can shoot people and the environment isn't designed in any kind of way where you can meaningfully use your movement abilities. And here's a segment where there is almost no enemies and you'll be doing a bunch of dedicated platforming. So right off the bat, I was like, wow, that's a huge missed opportunity because using those two things together was genuinely really fun. And the game just does, like, none of the game's levels are designed in such a way where you can reasonably use the platforming and the shooting at the same time.
Yeah, it needed more like corridor like levels.
Yeah, exactly. So you could
accomplishable.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say they're big open spaces, but they're bigger than, yeah, as you said, useful in order to do that.
Yeah, well, just like a lot of the combat sections are like combat arenas in the same way that Doom has like big open spaces. It's just that like where Doom has a bunch of obstacles that you're expected to like pinball around as you mow through enemies. In Titanfall, it's just a bunch of fucking cover for you to hide behind, because if you don't hide behind cover, you get obliterated, because this is a real man's game where you play a real human man who dies in one hit. Well, 2 hits, but whatever. On normal anyway.
Same diff.
Yeah, and I'm not like really big on hiding behind cover. I don't give a fuck about playing realistic games. That's not why I play video games. Plus, you have a fucking like double jump and you can like wall slide and shit in this game. So it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's make the fucking shooting realistic. That makes sense. I was kind of disappointed immediately because of that, and the campaign didn't do anything across the entire 5-hour runtime to meaningfully change my mind. I did go back. I played through the campaign almost a second time today just to verify that I wasn't like completely missing something. It is exactly what I described. There's like one level in the game where you can kind of do maneuverability. It's one where you're like in the sky and a lot of the environment is built to use your platforming abilities, and there's enemies scattered throughout. But they don't roadblock you, so there's no reason to fight them. You can just kind of run past them the entire time and finish the level without ever really having to fight them until like the very end when there's like a dedicated combat sequence you have to do with your mech. Speaking of the mech, that's like the thing that's not really introduced in the tutorial and is the other kind of big gameplay component, and that is just so fucking boring. The mech controls exactly the way you think a mech would control, so it's like big, slow, and chunky.
Yep, that's not you.
It's just, it feels like I'm playing a fucking rail shooter.
What's wrong with a rail shooter?
Everything, they're boring. I'm not huge on it. The different types of guns they give you are neat. I don't like some of them very much, but at least with the second time through, I kind of know how all of them work, so some of the ones I wasn't as keen on in the sections where they introduce them to you. Every time you get a new weapon loadout, the section following it is very specifically designed to utilize that particular weapon loadout. So the second time through, when I knew how to use all the weapon loadouts, it was like a much easier to be like, oh, as soon as I picked it up, I'm like, okay, I need to do this with this weapon in this area, because that's how it's meant to be played. Except for like toward the end of the game, when you have almost all the loadouts, there's like a giant section where you're best suited to swap between like the 6 or 7 loadouts you have up to that point on the fly as you need them, because they start you off with like the basic bitch one, and the basic bitch one is like okay for the first little bit of that level. If you try to play the rest of the level with it, it's just a huge pain in the ass. halfway through it, you get the railgun, and the railgun's really good for the back half of it, but for the first half of it, it's like, ah, yes, you have the chain gun at the start. And I'm like, well, the chain gun's kind of not great. So it's better to like switch over to like the tone, and then when you're in close quarters, switch over to the Ronin, and then when you're out of close quarters again, switch back to the tone, and then it gives you the railgun, and then you can just use the railgun for the back half of that mission. I do like how the campaign, well, I guess there's two things I really like about the Titanfall that I'll still stop kind of shitting on it. There's two things I think Titanfall does really, really well. So the first is pacing. The game has excellent pacing. It introduces new ideas in just about every single level, and then experiments with them enough that it's exciting, but not boring, and then ditches them before you get a chance to get bored of them, which is a really, really smart way of designing a first-person shooter campaign, because the basic shooting is like hide behind cover and shoot people from a million miles away, which is unexceptional. So it's great that like a lot of the different mechanics that the game is using are, there's just different things to keep your mind engaged with what's happening besides just shoot the bad guy. Strangely, the best mechanic in the game is halfway through the campaign. Like one-off level gimmick is at the direct midpoint in the campaign, and then like almost all of the mechanics that appear after that are like really not great by comparison. So I thought that was kind of odd that like what is arguably the most interesting mechanic of the entire, like a mechanic that indie like first-person platforming game could be based around in its entirety, is used for one level in this game, and then it's like thrown away forever. And it's like the most interesting idea that Titanfall has, and yeah, you just get to see it in like the one level, and that's it, in the middle of the game instead of like it being toward the end of the game, but whatever.
What was? Yeah.
It was a time traveling one.
Right. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, everyone does. That's the best fucking mechanic in the game.
And what was the other part you liked?
The other part I like is how the story, or at least the character story between Military Macho Man, who you play, and his pet robot, I think is really well done. The story is mostly told through gameplay. It's something I kind of picked up on toward the end of the campaign. When I replayed the first half of the campaign, I really noticed it, because this time I was like, I'm going to look for this thing that I only kind of noticed at the end of the game. Because yeah, it's not super in your face about it. It takes a very nuanced approach to telling the story between these two characters. I thought that was really impressive, because like a big thing for me, I comment on all the time, is how developers would just fucking forget that they're making a video game. So they tell their stories like movies, and Titanfall doesn't do that. So it actually develops the relationship between these two characters through the gameplay by showing how they are like codependent on one another, by constantly reinforcing that theme through the times that they're apart and the times that they're together throughout the different mission structures and whatnot that you do in the game. So I thought that was pretty good. The actual story itself is stupid, cheesy, big, gruff men and gruff ladies shooting the shit out of each other, America rah-rah kind of shit. But
Woo!
The actual relationship between BT and Cooper is, I think, really well done. Titanfall's like fine. I don't think it's as exceptional as everyone else said it was, but a big part of the reason for that from me is the fact that I feel like its mechanics are generally underutilized versus how they could have been used. And how they could have been used is demonstrated very clearly in the tutorial and then never really utilized anywhere else, which is disappointing. I know you've played the game. Mm-hmm. Do you fundamentally disagree with anything I've said there?
It's been a really long time since I played this, because it was 2017. I looked it up.
Yeah.
4 years ago. So it's been a really long time since I played this. No, I mean, yeah, the story and the mechanics overall are they're pretty solid. I think the reason why people really like it is because it felt a lot more refreshing of a campaign than Call of Duty was doing at the time.
I'm just gonna throw this out there: being better than like actual dog shit doesn't make you good, though. That's right.
I know.
So like I can understand. Oh, it's a breath of fresh air, but at the same time, like being like a Call of Duty is just towing the line. So being better than fucking like the king of mediocrity as far as single player campaigns go, it's like, okay, that's not really an accomplishment.
Fair enough.
That's like that's like beating out the D student. Like, okay, yeah, you beat the D student. Woohoo, good job.
This turd is now minty fresh. Thank God.
Precisely. So yeah, I don't like hate the game. I don't love it as much as everyone else seems to, or at least seemed to, I should say. But like I generally agree with a lot of the commentary about like the I mean, obviously, I've echoed the same sentiments that some other people have said with like the way that the pacing and the mechanics of individual levels work. That's really well done. I just am disappointed that the shooting and the mobility aren't really tied together in any kind of meaningful way in the single player. I have a feeling that the multiplayer is a very different story in regard to that, especially because you have a grappling hook in the multiplayer, but I have no interest in playing the multiplayer because I'm a friggin' Goomba, so...
Yeah, you probably wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't know. Shooting and team-based stuff isn't really my cup of tea for multiplayer type games. I don't like team stuff in general, so...
It's a bit better because I think they throw in bots in those modes.
I saw that, which at least helps with keeping the... Like, you could always feel like you're making a meaningful interaction even if you can't kill another human being, because you're like, oh, I can just kill bots.
Correct.
It's kind of like the problem I had with MOBAs or like Overwatch or whatever. Whenever I'm playing a game, and if I'm on a team, it's very hard for me to figure out, like, how do I improve? Because the individual actions you take as a team member and, like, what effect those had on the overarching game is, like, a lot more hard to parse than in, like, a one-on-one type scenario in like, StarCraft or, like, a fighting game. Where it's like, okay, I can very clearly see what decisions I made that were incorrect, or like how I incorrectly responded to certain things my opponent did. And that led to me losing, or winning. Usually losing, though. And then the final thing I've been playing is a game called Cozy Grove. It's Animal Crossing, but good.
Okay.
The basic premise of it is that you are a spirit scout, and you're sent to an island, and the goal of spirit scouts is to find the restless spirits on the island and help them pass on into the afterlife, which probably sounds very similar to Spiritfarer.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, I couldn't help noticing that comparison as well, but
I mean, you're basically just like an Ice Grim Reaper.
Yeah, as far as the style goes, where Spiritfarer is maybe a little bit more in line with the kind of busy work that you find in Harvest Moon, Cozy Grove is the kind of busy work you find in Animal Crossing. But I'm finding the way it's contextualized and some of the changes that were made to this, because it's very clearly inspired by Animal Crossing. As soon as you boot up the game, it's immediately apparent, like, okay, this game was clearly made by people who like Animal Crossing. There's some kind of like fundamental changes they make in as far as how they frame and present things that makes what is basically the exact same experience as Animal Crossing not irritating to me in the same way that New Horizons was. So, like, you know how you have to pay off your house in Animal Crossing?
Yes.
In this, you have a tent. You can upgrade your tent by paying for an upgraded tent. But in Animal Crossing, when you start off, you know how like the first like real goal you get in the game from the NPCs is, hey, here's like a massive loan, you need to pay it off so you can upgrade your house. The game never even tells you that you can upgrade the tent. It's just like an option when you're talking to your assistant character. You just see that like when you're talking to them that, oh, hey, there's an option for me to upgrade my tent. I might do that. Because the main goal in this is to help the spirits on the island. So you're more focused on talking with the spirits and doing like quests for them and hearing their individual stories. So the kind of upgrading your tent is an ancillary goal. It's something extra that you can do, but it's not the focus. In the same vein as that, the Nook Miles system that was used to make your island better, that's kind of like the other big goal you're given, is, hey, make your island better. And the best way to do that at the start of the game is to get a shitload of Nook Miles so that you can go out and find the villagers you want and to get the different terraforming tools when they unlock, as well as a number of different decorations that can give you a shitload of points towards making your island, you know, like a 5-star island.
And that being the end goal.
And then, like, the easiest way, or I guess not the easiest way to do that, but, like, because, like, the most readily apparent way to do that is to do the different grindy tasks that are in your, like, logbook, right? So, right away, you're like, okay, what's the easiest way to optimize the most points out of this system? And that's usually to play in the most unfun way possible and just grind out a bunch of stuff. The same sort of system exists in this. You have merit badges, and when you earn merit badges, you are usually given a monetary reward. But as I said before, the money is something that
It's just a bonus.
Yeah, it's basically a bonus. You're going to use it to buy things for your island that will help you to grow the island in general, but these are all like secondary or tertiary goals to the main goal of helping out the different spirits on the island, because the game is so focused on helping, like the gameplay loop of like talking to these spirits, doing quests for them, and then talking with them. So it's more focused on like doing quests for the NPCs, and then like experiencing the character related dialogue for the NPCs. And because the focus is on that, and these other goals are like secondary and tertiary goals instead, you're not like laser focused on them, and whenever you get stuff related to them, it's like, oh, this is a nice bonus, instead of, oh, I need to do this because this is the point of the game. I've been finding it very enjoyable, even though when I look at it mechanically, it's the same thing. It's just that they've framed it differently, and because of that framing, I don't hate it, because I'm not focusing on like getting a shitload of money. That's not the point. That's just something that will happen as I do the other thing, the main thing in the game, which is to help these spirits. The game's also designed in such a way that you're supposed to kind of like check in and play it for like 30 minutes to 60 minutes a day, and then just fuck off. So it'll give you like a limited selection of things to do for the day. You'll come in, you'll do those things, and then you go away, and that's it. That also helps to like keep you playing the game in a certain type of way where you're not going to get bored or frustrated with some of the more monotonous aspects of it. There's quite literally like no incentive to keep playing beyond that kind of like 30 to 60 minute time window. Once you've completed kind of all of your quests for the day for the spirits you're dealing with, then it's like, all right, it's time to leave for the day. And then you show up the next day and then you resume from wherever you left off. Where, you know, like in Animal Crossing, you can just fish or like grind out different tasks indefinitely in a lot of cases without any kind of penalty, because the game doesn't stop you from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just like a few, I think, really, really smart design decisions and like framing decisions that Cozy Grove has made that helps to keep what would be a really monotonous experience from becoming super duper monotonous, if it's the kind of thing you're into. If it's not the kind of thing you're into, I'm sure you'd play it for like a fucking hour and be like, well, I'm bored, I hate this. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm like, oh, this is actually like, the game is designed in such a way that I'm actually having fun with it, even though it's basically the same experience as what New Leaf was on like a mechanical level, which I thought was very interesting.
Sounds neat. Sounds like something Nintendo should...
I believe it's on the Switch and like mobile devices. Let me just double check that.
Does sound like the perfect place for mobile.
It's on everything, apparently.
Keep an eye out for that then.
But yeah, I've been having, I'm not going to say like a lot of fun, but I've been enjoying popping in and then playing it for however long each day. I only think I've had it for like 4 or 5 days at this point. I've been enjoying kind of just dicking around in it and doing my do. Okay. That's it, by the way. I'm finally out of stuff to talk about now.
Finally. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week on the Frosty Canucks. You can follow us on Twitter at the Frosty Canucks, and you can follow this podcast wherever it is available, such as Stitcher, Spotify, and Anchor.
Spoofy.
You can follow myself at Javim Animation, that's JAVM Animation, on Twitter. I post some stuff about some games I've been playing, been catching up on the Platinum posts, that's about it. And Frosty, your stuff.
You can follow my Twitter for updates on everything. What is everything? I do art-related stuff. If you just want to if you want to see the art-related stuff, you just go to Instagram. That's where it all gets posted. I haven't really been doing a lot of art lately, though, so sorry about that, but that's just the way it is. The blog, I write about video games on my blog, frostylate.ca. You should go there and read the stuff I've written. This past week, I published an article about video game literacy, specifically focusing on fighting games, because that is the lens from which I have the best viewpoint to write about that subject, and the inherent problems that it can lead to with understanding and getting into a particular game you're interested in playing. That article's been doing extremely well, which is nice, and I thought that it might be contentious, but apparently it's not, because a lot of people seem to agree with the general gist of what I've said, which is cool. So if you haven't read that already, go read it. I really, really like what I came up with on that. Is probably one of the longest posts I've ever written. It was not hard to write or edit. I was very passionate about it, so that doesn't happen for every single article I write. Twitch.tv/FrostyLight every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, streaming video games or art. Lately, it's just been video games because I've been in a bit of an art slump, but kind come by for the shit show. It's always a good time, or at least I think it's always a good time. And I believe that's everything.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us, and stay frosty.